Well, welcome to Christ and Culture. This is Pastor Jeff Short, and we're going to be looking at another topical, issue oriented, biblical Christian worldview topic today. And the topic is how our culture right now, today, how people in our culture are thinking about abortion, and it's very shocking that someone who would go in to have an abortion and would be shocked at the doctor for congratulating them on a baby. And the assumption in this writer, and we'll be looking at this article from Yahoo News, originally in the HuffPost, Jennifer Bassett, who writes that she was shocked when she visited her doctor and found out she was pregnant and wanted to find out about the baby, that he congratulated her on having a baby. And she said, well, wait a minute, what if I want to have an abortion? And she was shocked that he would assume that she was going to keep her child. That is shocking in and of itself, that we have come to a point in our culture today that the assumption of secular people today, in this secular, humanistic, godless, sinful, immoral culture, it's shocking that they would assume, that everyone would assume like they do, that abortion is just a natural, normal thing, and that you shouldn't assume because a woman is pregnant and found pregnant in the doctor's office that it would be a good thing. Our culture today assumes that abortion is just as likely as live birth. So let's look at this article, and I'm going to try to react as a Christian. One of the things that I see this program is a discipleship tool. It helps you apply what the Bible truths are, not only in how we live, but how we think about these things, because we all read the paper. We shouldn't read too much of the news, by the way. A lot of Christians fall into the trap of reading too much news, consuming too much content, consuming too much cultural information, and that can make you depressed because, again, you're confronted with people all the time who have such a radically different, sinful, immoral view of the world that knowledge of such a great number of people in our society living outside of God's kingdom, that can be depressing. That can be very sad to think that our culture is where it's at right now. But when we do read the news, we encounter things like this. And here is the secular world assuming that abortion is just a normal, natural thing in life, and it's totally not normal and natural. In fact, it's immoral, it's sinful, and we should, as a culture, actually have eliminated it by now, but instead we're actually expanding it under the current administration. So it just shows you how far we've fallen as a culture, as a nation. And there will be judgment. There are consequences to sin. Just like Jordan Peterson, the Canadian psychiatrist, has said, public intellectual has said, nobody gets away with sin. Sin is such a thing that there's always a price. And we are going to have to reckon with our abortion sins in this nation. Even though we have Roe v. Wade overturned, and we rejoice in that, and I have been praying for 30 years for the overthrow of Roe v. Wade, and finally it happened. It was a great day in history. But the other side, the forces of evil, the sinful culture, they have responded now, and essentially what they're doing is going state by state, and they're making it a constitutional right in every state. So hopefully that won't happen. There will be states that stand strong for life, but a number of different states in the midterm elections recently passed referendums that say now abortion is enshrined in their constitution. So, namely Michigan, as an example. But let's get into this article and let's find out what this person has to say, and let's point out the errors in this way of thinking. The headline is, I had an abortion in my 40s. I'll never forget the shocking thing the doctor said to me. So what is this great shocking thing that the doctor said to her? Well, from my viewpoint, it's not so shocking, but I'm shocked that she would be shocked by it. I never would have guessed, she goes on, I never would have guessed that my first abortion would be when I was in my 40s, married and a parent already. That's the situation I was in when my pregnancy test came back positive in the first July of COVID-19 pandemic. Initially, I thought I had COVID or just anxiety from helicopters flying over Brooklyn nonstop. But when my period was late and then light after it finally arrived, I decided I was probably in perimenopause. It wasn't until I spit out a glass of wine I was nursing that I finally knew. The other time that alcohol had tasted like poison was when I was pregnant 6 years before. Okay, so this woman had been pregnant before. She has children. She's in her 40s, and she finds herself pregnant. So I took a pregnancy test, then another and another. A year later, when we were finally able to administer weekly COVID tests ourselves, I would think about how similar they looked to those pregnancies. But I wondered why the indicator for COVID was just 2 straight lines, while the indicator on my pregnancy tests were plus signs, a silent judgment. My husband was excited when he found out the news, which made me feel worse since I only felt panic. So, yeah, here's another modern problem. Her husband was excited. Why? Because he was excited that they were going to have a baby come into the family again. He was excited, like any good father would be, to find out that there was going to be another member of the family. But she said she felt a panic. Now, I can understand that if you're in your 40s and you already have children and you find out you're pregnant, you would have mixed emotions. But panic? That's maybe not the right expected emotion here. I was 41. I had just come out of 3 months of remote schooling with my 6-year-old daughter. Okay. And then there was work. Oh, so she's working. She's a modern woman who works full-time, I assume, with children at home. I had started my own business. Okay, so she's really a modern woman. She wants to try to, what they call, have it all. Work, business. She wants to be in the family. She wants to be a mother, career woman, everything, which is disaster in and of itself, because you're going to find that if you want to, quote, have it all, you're going to have to cut corners, or you're going to be totally exhausted. And that is not the way God planned things. The Bible teaches that it says women are to be keepers of the home, and they're to be busy organizing, managing, raising children, and more domestic experts rather than out and about and starting businesses and having a high fancy career and doing all the things that men do. Because if you're a woman and you're raising children and then trying to do all the things men do, you're going to find out that something has to give, either your health or your mental health or something. But that's a recipe for disaster. So she's one of those hard driving career women who wants to have it all, and here she finds herself pregnant. A path I took after being pushed out of my previous job at a tech company because I was a mother. Whereas the flexibility and independence I had now were more desirable, it has also became impossible for me to take any kind of maternity leave without losing massive amounts of money. So here's money involved. So instead of worrying about this, letting her husband deal with the income and being the bread earner and doing what is the healthy, sane, sound, wise thing, she's now taking upon herself to be the breadwinner also, and she's worried about money. So you have all kinds of things forcing on her mind right now. Her career, money that she would not be able to make if she were pregnant, and the feminist ideal of having a career and doing all these things all at once. And yeah, if you put all of those responsibilities on your shoulders, something has to give. And it looks like she's perfectly willing to let this child be the one that's sacrificed on the altar of her life. But weren't these selfish reasons to be in doubt? Weren't there people raising kids with much less? Yeah, they are selfish reasons. Exactly. Still unsure about what to do, I made an appointment with our OBGYN. The one who had delivered my daughter moved from downtown to Upper West Side, and there was no way I was taking the subway to her office while COVID was still spreading. Instead, I found a local place that I could walk to. It was my first visit to a doctor since the pandemic, and I was scared. I double masked. I wore gloves. Okay, so she sounds really like one of what they call Karens, who is hyper vigilant and seems like she's paranoid almost, probably listening to all of the mainstream media reporting on the subject that would make you not only paranoid but neurotic, and did make people neurotic. And then that led to depression, anxiety, and you might call it group psychosis that occurred during the pandemic because of all the conflicting information we were getting and the lies from the government and so forth. But that's another issue altogether. After arriving, I changed into a hospital gown from the nurse and waited alone in the clean white room. My belly was covered with cold, wet jelly and rubbed with a transducer. I looked at the ultrasound screen even though I didn't really want to. So here, this is so unnatural, and this is the problem. She is not acting the way a healthy woman should act when she finds out she's pregnant. For all of human history, when a woman found out she was pregnant, in 99.9% of the cases, she would be happy because she was being blessed with children, and children are a blessing from God. That's the Christian perspective. But see, she doesn't come from a Christian perspective. She comes from a secular, humanistic perspective. And now every pregnancy is either a pain in the neck or a bother or some inconvenience that has to be dealt with instead of being received as a blessing. And this is part of the problem. She's bringing this secular, immoral, godless perspective to the doctor's office. And it says she didn't really want to look at the ultrasound. She didn't even want to see her baby, the life that's growing in her. This human being, this little human being, this gift from God. Yeah, there would be inconveniences. Yes, there would be sacrifices being made. But she has another child. She has another baby. It's already here. It exists. It's not like, well, if you had a choice, would I take on another child at this time? No, she's already has a child at this time. That little baby in the womb is already her baby. She's already a mother again. Her husband is already a father. And so the natural, normal, healthy, godly perspective would be, well, okay, praise the Lord. We weren't expecting another child to come into the home, but glory to God. Under the providence of God, this little child is finding a loving home here. There it is, the doctor said, the baby. I stared at this moving, living blob in my belly. Okay, so again, this is such a dark thinking woman, such a dark worldview that she's bringing into her life experiences. She's looking at her child, her baby, her new baby, and she's calling it a blob in my belly. Okay, she's doing that to dehumanize it because she knows what she wants to do, and that is she's going to kill that baby. She's going to murder her child. And so she has to dehumanize it in order to exist so that she doesn't feel so guilty and grieved that she is the one who will kill her own child. So the doctor says, congratulations, Mommy. You're already 6 weeks. That is a normal, healthy reaction by a doctor or a healthcare professional. Congratulations, Mommy. You are already 6 weeks. You have a baby. You have another child. You and your husband are proud parents. Congratulations. That is a totally rational, it is a natural perspective to have by any healthcare professional. And this woman now is going to react against that. The doctor handed me a black and white image of my uterus. We had hung a similar image of my daughter on our refrigerator with a magnet. I folded this one up in my hand. From the look on the doctor's face, I realized that it hadn't even occurred to her that a married mother with one child already during a pandemic might not want to keep her baby. See, this is the problem. We have given women a false, fake right to slaughter their own offspring, and we've given them that right for about 50 years since the infamous Roe v. Wade decision by the Supreme Court. We've given them this fake, false right. The feminist movement has latched onto that and convinced every single woman that she has a God-given right to kill her baby if she doesn't want it. And so now this woman is bringing that false assumption, that evil, sinful, wicked assumption into this doctor's office, and can't understand why the doctor would just simply assume that she would be happy. Well, the doctor is right and this woman is wrong. The doctor has a natural, normal, healthy, and I might add godly perspective, and this woman has a demonic perspective, because whenever you look at the baby in your womb, if you're a mother, and you don't want to see it, and you don't want it, you have the problem, not the doctor who congratulates you. But she was complaining, well, this doctor she just assumed that I wanted the baby. Yeah, because that's the normal, natural thing. And that maybe I'd want to make a different choice. You'll need extensive blood work and weekly appointments, she told me, since you are a geriatric pregnancy. And that just simply means that she's an older woman, geriatric, an older woman. She's 40 plus. And women usually have their pregnancies when they're in their 20s and 30s. It's better to have it in their 20s and 30s because then their body is younger and can deal with the stress of a child. But after 40, births happen every day, and there doesn't have to be any problem necessarily if it's closely watched and monitored, and her health is closely monitored, and it should be fine. How many times had my friends and I made fun of the term over mom whine while complaining about the gender division of labor at home? Geriatric, old, at 41. Yeah, that's not, it's actually not accurate now that people are living into their 80s and 90s, because 41 is actually just maybe starting midlife, but that's the classification in medicine. What if I decided I'm not sure if I want to have the child, I asked. See, this is the problem. There never should have been any choice given to women to kill their baby, just as you shouldn't give men the choice to kill their child for any reason. She was not expecting this question. I could tell it made her uncomfortable. Yes, because you're talking about murder. And doctors are supposed to be in their profession to assist life, do no harm, the Hippocratic Oath. Yeah, so this question that she was asking is very shocking. She was used to giving positive news in a shiny, clean office so that she could deliver beautiful, bouncing babies in Park Slope who would have full-time nannies and be fluent in Mandarin at age 5. Well, that's kind of sarcastic. This woman really, you can tell, has an attitude. And she's mocking now the doctor who she says is giving positive news in a shiny, clean office because of her evil assumptions and her evil worldview. She's judging the doctor's attitude at the news of a new baby. She looked away from me. Well, then you have some options. Yeah. I hope that this doctor might not have even been Christian. This doctor probably is a feminist and probably would vote for abortion rights, but it's so natural and normal and God given to react with joy at the announcement that there's a baby. Women love to make a big deal about babies. And so this woman is making a big deal about this new baby. And the writer of this article is saying, well, wait, I'm not even sure I'm going to keep it. I think I might kill it. But she sanitizes the language. She won't say it that way. But I didn't want to burst her bubble, and maybe she was right. I told her I wanted my blood work done that day. Later, I would learn that 59% of abortion patients already have a kid, that the majority of women who choose the procedure do so they can better support a child that they already have. So you kill your one child so that you can give the resources to the other. That's pretty Machiavellian, or you might call it ruthless, cruel. I could see that happening in the animal kingdom. You know, you throw out of the nest sort of the weak bird so that you don't have to feed it and you can give more food to the others. But for human beings made in the image of God, that's barbaric. That my situation was actually quite common. Okay, so this is rationalization. She's trying to feel better about herself. I did research and found out 59%, blah, blah, blah. She's trying to reinforce her really sick and twisted worldview. Since the beginning of time, women have made decisions like this. No, they haven't, because abortion hasn't been around in this form with this convenience ever until the modern age. I would also learned that the birth rate in the U.S. was falling each year, and that 74% of parents under 50 were not interested in adding another child in their lives. Well, right. Older parents usually are not interested in it, but that's a far step from saying, I want to kill my baby that's already conceived. On the way home, walking my bike down Vanderbilt Avenue and feeling woozy from all the blood taken for my geriatric pregnancy, with the ultrasound image folded in my pocket of my shorts, I started to cry from behind my mask. Yeah, she's crying because she's doing something evil, and she's trying to square that with who she thinks she is. I could not have this child. Not right now. Yes, you could. That is you deciding to do something wrong and sinning. And you're trying to talk yourself into it. Not right now, when people around were suffocating because they couldn't breathe, and when I woke up in terror every night at 3 a.m. with asthma attacks. Okay, so she's trying to build a case, rationalizing murder. When we were in bed later that night, I asked my husband if he was disappointed. If he was disappointed, okay, so she's going to make the decision. She's going to make the final call. Now, why? Why? They both conceived this child. They're both married. But she gets the ultimate call on this? Why? It's your choice, he said quietly, turning his face toward me. He still looked like a boy, my husband, in his wiry frame and shaggy hair. I'll support you no matter what. But I knew he was already imagining a sweet little baby to dote on. I was picturing it too. Their soft, puffy cheeks, their first beautiful smiles. Yeah, that's natural. That's what you should be feeling. But this wimp of a man should have protested and say, wait a minute. We conceived a baby. We already have a baby. This baby is our child. We have another child. We need to do the right thing and have this pregnancy. My previous pregnancy was not easy. My daughter was in distress. There was meconium inside me, and I had run a high fever. I was saving grace of my OBGYN that I didn't need a C-section. But I was very sick, and we were scared for my daughter, and I had not given an antibiotic while in labor. And when she emerged violently, I was only allowed to hold her briefly before she was carted away to a neonatal intensive care unit to be monitored and given antibiotics. Okay, so the first one had a few complications. No one's birth ever goes as they expect, but this experience was terrifying. There was a point when we were told we might have to go home without her. I remember the relief when we could leave the hospital with her in the car seat. Well, great. The day after my new ultrasound, I tried to call Planned Parenthood. Uh-oh. You call the people that facilitate the death of babies. Great. Out of earshot of my daughter, but it was completely booked. So I had to return to the bright and shiny OBGYN office that had provided the image of my uterus, and it would soon be my dead child. Oh, gee. This time they gave me some options. I told them that I preferred the one with pills. So she's already decided she's going to kill her baby. This is sick. She's given the 2 pills for the abortion. It seemed the cleanest, although I knew that nothing would be easy, that I'd pass blood, tissues, clots, and remnants of the baby. Arms, legs, oh boy. And that it would all hang over me forever. Yes, it would. The guilt and shame of killing your own offspring will hang over you. It's a sin. That's what sin does. I was told about the risk, but I didn't really think about them. I just wanted it done. I knew the medication abortion was 95% effective if administered properly. So she's going to take an at-home abortion pills, in the privacy of her own bathroom. Her baby gets dumped down the toilet. Yeah. She's going to live with that. Afterward, the nurse sent me to the office of the doctor there, which felt strange, like I was being sent to the principal's office. Usually, the doctor comes to you. Yeah, you are. You should feel strange. You should feel guilty. You should feel grief. You should feel remorse, but you're going to go ahead anyway. The man sitting behind the desk was about 60 years old. He told me to shut the door. Now, how did we get here? He asked if I was seated facing him. You should really be more responsible, someone like you. You should know better. I recommended you come back after this for an IUD so this would never happen again. So he's going to scold her. I laughed involuntarily. His comment was so absurd and insulting that I felt my brain separate from my body. Like I wasn't there. Responsible, I repeated. I'm married. I have a kid already. I take the pill. And anyway, I thought I was in premenopause. Not premenopause, the doctor told me. You are young and strong. This can happen again, and you need to be more responsible about these things. The irony of being told this after being called a geriatric pregnancy wasn't lost on me. Look, I said, you don't need to tell me this. The word responsible weighed on me. I thought of the endless forms to the sign, the butts to clean, the meals to cook, the sheets to change, all the frantic work calls I had to take while my daughter was yelling at me down the hallway, all the rushing to do after-school pickups from the subway in before times. Of course, I was responsible. Of course, I had weighed this decision carefully. Yeah, but you shouldn't even be thinking this way. The doctor opened the door to his desk, removed a bottle, and handed me some pills. Okay, so he's going to give her the abortion pills, and he's going to give her the risks, and she's going to feel upset, and she's going to take the pills, and she checked the uterus, went back into the doctor's office, but the news was not good. I'm sorry to have to tell you this, she said after checking my uterus. There's still pieces of tissue in you. We need to arrange a DNC, dilation and curettage surgery. Okay, so she's going to have the surgical abortion anyway. See, this is what happens, and this is a long letter. We don't have article. We don't have time to finish it. This scenario should not have even come about, because if a healthy person is thinking right, they're not going to choose this. This is terrible. Well, this is something to think about. Our culture needs a lot of prayer, and we'll talk to you next week on another program. God bless.